I've owned every single version of the iPhone. It's what I use as my daily device, and of course I've dabbled around and used other devices as well, but I continuously come back to this. It just works really well for me. And this is the iPhone 7 Plus, of course the latest iteration of the iPhone, and really it solidifies to me why I use an iPhone. It might not be the best in every single category, but as an entire package, it is an excellent phone. So I absolutely love technology. I love getting the latest and greatest, tinkering with it, getting it exactly the way I want. But at the end of the day, I really want a device that just works and works the way I expect it to. And that's what I think the iPhone is really great at, and the iPhone 7 is no different. Now the iPhone 7 of course has a very similar design to the iPhone 6s. Whether or not that matters to you is really up to you. If you like the design, great. If not, well, maybe you should wait. But what is new here is two new black colors, a black, which is the one I have here, and a jet black. Jet black looks great by the way, but the black is a more stealthy look, which I really love. The antenna bands have been cleaned up a bit, and also the camera hump has also been changed a bit, so there are differences, but on the whole, this phone basically looks the same as the iPhone 6s. Now, even though it looks rather similar, there are some changes here that really change the way that you use the device. The first one that I notice is the home button. This button is no longer a button, it doesn't move anymore. It just uses haptics with that Taptic engine that's built in to simulate the feel of a button. And after getting used to it, which it does take some getting used to, I think is really convincing and works relatively well. I wouldn't say that it feels like a real button, but it's similar enough and it gives you the same effect. It's very responsive, it works well. The only issue with the home button that I found is that it's capacitive, so if you're using your fingernail or if you're wearing gloves or something that's in the way, it's not going to detect your finger, so that's something to keep in mind, but overall on a whole, the home button works well and it doesn't move anymore. Now the second thing I noticed was the display. It's still a 5.5-inch 1080p panel, and based on the numbers you might think that's kind of crappy for 2016, but it's not. It looks exceptionally good. It now has a wider color gamut so you can see more colors, and the contrast on the screen is just great. It's still IPS, so it can't be quite as good as an AMOLED panel of course, but for an IPS screen this is the best I've ever seen. Now sure, it might be nice to have some more pixel density there, but in terms of just aesthetic, how it looks, it is excellent. One thing you might want to do with this screen is watch videos, and what's great about the iPhone 7 is it now has dual speakers. So there's one on the bottom like we had before, but now the earpiece, which is where you normally make calls from, now that acts as a second speaker. The effect is interesting since they're not both facing you, but they do sound louder, they sound better, there's a bigger dynamic range, and you do get some separation. Overall, the speakers are pretty great on the iPhone. Now, aside from the speakers, there is a bit of a change when it comes to audio on the iPhone 7, and of course, there's no headphone jack. Now, I've been a big proponent of Bluetooth headphones. I've been using them for over a year now, so the transition really isn't all that bad, but I'm not gonna lie and say that it was no problem whatsoever. I did run into some issues, mainly when jumping into cars that still had an aux cord and don't use Bluetooth. There's nowhere to plug in. Although luckily they do include the adapter in the box, and they also include a pair of lightning ear pods, so it's not a horrible transition, but you definitely have to think about it when getting the iPhone 7. Now performance-wise, this phone is excellent. It's using the Apple A10 Fusion processor, which has 4 cores, 2 of which are for high performance and 2 are for efficiency. So this is going to give you better performance when you're using the phone, but it's also going to give you better battery life. And speaking of the battery life on the iPhone 7 Plus, it is excellent. I can easily go throughout the day and still have some charge at the end. Now of course your usage is what's really going to determine your battery life. If you have the brightness all the way up and are just on it constantly, you're gonna kill it before lunch. But if you use it moderately, or as you would normally do, you have the brightness a little bit down, it'll easily last you all day. One thing I wasn't expecting to like so much is that the iPhone is now IP67 water and dust resistant, so if it gets a little wet, it's gonna be fine. And I've actually been taking a shower with mine every single day since I've had it. So far, nothing's gone wrong. Now that doesn't mean that it is waterproof, and water still can get in, and remember that if water does get in, water damage is not covered under warranty. But if it gets splashed or taken in the shower, so far I haven't had any issues. Now, when I'm actually out and about in the real world, one of the things I look for in a new phone is the camera, of course. And on the iPhone 7, there's a whole new system here. It's 12 megapixel f1.8 aperture, optical image stabilization, 6-element lens. It's all new. But what's interesting with the iPhone 7 Plus is that there's 2 cameras here. The second one isn't quite as high quality. It's an f2.8 aperture and doesn't have optical image stabilization. But what's different here is that you get a more zoomed in focal length, 56mm equivalent. So what this means is effectively you get optical zoom on your smartphone, which is nice to have. Now that second camera isn't only used for zooming, it's also used to gather information to help give you the best photo possible. And overall, I've got to say the photos coming off the iPhone 7 Plus are really good. When comparing to something like the Galaxy S7, there is some competition there. They're pretty neck and neck, but overall on a whole, with color representation, detail, the iPhone 7 seems to do a better job. This camera also does 4K video like we had on the iPhone 6s, and the optical image stabilization that is in this really works well for video. It's probably the best that I've ever seen on a smartphone. Optical image stabilization really works here. But there's one more trick up the iPhone 7 Plus's sleeve, and that's called Portrait, and that's a new feature coming for the iPhone 7 Plus. And what this does is give you a depth of field effect, similar to what you get in a higher-end camera. Now, this is still in beta, so it's not out quite yet, but if you want to see more about that, I did a video over on Macromers, so be sure to check out the link down in the description to see how that works and the results. But yeah, when looking at real-world performance, the iPhone 7's camera does pretty great. Now, I decided to go with the iPhone 7 Plus this time around because of that screen, the battery, and the camera. So I didn't get a chance to really use the iPhone 7, so I'm gonna go ahead and let Aditya from TekGeekHD let you know about the iPhone 7.
Alright, so let's start off with the largest, most notable feature and the largest difference, and that is the screen. The iPhone 7 comes with a 4.7-inch screen as opposed to the 5.5-inch 1080p panel on the iPhone 7 Plus. Both of these displays are excellent, they both look great, but for a lot of people the iPhone 7 is the ideal size, myself included. Unlike Matt this year, I decided to pick up the regular 4.7-inch phone instead of the Plus because I like the portability and the pocketability of the smaller phone. It also means that it makes for a more intimate experience while using your phone because you can use it one-handed instead of having to use two hands with your phablet. Another important factor when buying a phone in 2016 is the price. There's a lot of different offerings from Android manufacturers available at much more competitive prices, but if you're looking to get an iPhone and you still want the latest offering from Apple, the iPhone 7 consistently comes in at $100 cheaper for every configuration than the iPhone 7 Plus. All that aside, the iPhone 7 and iPhone 7 Plus are both excellent smartphones. They come with that Apple experience that everyone's come to know and love, and are also the latest offerings this year. With the new cameras, optical image stabilization, the new faster solid-state home button, and all the other new features that come with the iPhone 7, iPhone 7 Plus, and iOS 10, both phones are excellent to consider, and I would be happy receiving either one.
So that is the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus. Huge thanks to TekGeekHD for letting me know about the iPhone 7. This phone is solid and continues my reasoning for why I use an iPhone pretty much every day. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and also subscribe so you can see when new videos like this are out every Tuesday and Friday. Also, be sure to follow me over on social media. Links for all that will be down below. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Again, my name is Matt, and I will see you next time.